Okay, so glad to see you all here. We are going to start our public hearing. So I'll open not public hearing, sorry, the workshop. I will open the workshop. And if I could have a roll call, please.
Councilor Hughes.
Here.
Councilor McElroy.
Here.
Councilor Metcalf.
Here.
Councilor Hilltop.
Here.
Councilor Strobel.
Here.
Councilor Timbers.
Here. Here. Thank you very much for that. We're gonna talk about the utility rate study presentation, and we have Steve Donovan here to present to us tonight. So
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. I'm going to run you through a PowerPoint presentation tonight, and it's going to be exclusively about sewer. We just started the rate study, and the first thing we wanted to do was get to you folks with some specificity and rate impacts of what exactly this is going to cost based on what we know today. The numbers and the presentation that I'm going to give you tonight, there's only one thing I can promise. The numbers are wrong. These numbers are going to change almost daily as you start unveiling this project. And I guarantee you, they're going to be different in ways that surprise you. I've gone through many of these wastewater treatment plant expansions or rebuilds over the last 30 years. And they're always complicated, they're always expensive, and they're always difficult to manage. So the other thing that Elena pointed out, and she's right, is this isn't the only thing that's facing you. You've got challenges in water. You've got challenges in stormwater. As a matter of fact, stormwater is probably financially the most tenuous of your utilities. But for tonight, let's talk about your new wastewater treatment plant and what it's going to cost. So I'm going to start out on this PowerPoint. And we're going to talk about the current cost estimate. And that's all it is an estimate. It's not a locked number yet. We're going to talk about our preliminary funding sources, the cash flows. This is the business plan, call it a bit for lack of a better term. It's the business plan of how you're going to build and fund this thing. Then we'll talk about the rate forecast, who's going to pay for it, and ratepayers are going to pay for it. And then we'll talk about the cash position of the utility throughout the construction and at the end of it. And then we've got a chart of neighboring communities' sewer rates here. It's cold comfort for you. Your rates really are pretty affordable right now, but that's going to change. So this next chart that you see here is a pie chart, and let me get my old Googles on here. Right now, best information we've got, and Elena, gosh, top in anytime you want. We're at $42 million right now for the project. That's a, what, 5 MGD plant?
5 or 6.
5 or 6. And it's going to be a very high technology. It's called a membrane bioreactor wastewater treatment plant. It's probably the most cutting edge of technologies right now. So what you're looking at here is the big red portion is the unfunded portion so far. You've got $2.4 million of a grant from the state, and congratulations on that. We think you're going to get $2 million of principal forgiveness on the Clean Water State Revolving Loan Program loans that you've got. You've got one right now that's got about 5 million. Is that what that? 3.5. I have taken a conservative case, and I'm assuming that that loan is going to be spent and then start to be paid back, and then you're going to take out a new loan. There is a possibility, and Elena pointed it out, that the DEQ might allow you to simply expand that existing $3.5 million loan to pick up the additional $33 million and keep it at the interest rate that you've got at 2.46%. I assume that you're going to take a new loan at current rates of 2.57. It's not a lot of difference, but these are very favorable rates given today's interest market. And these loans are very favorable terms. So you're very wise in going after these funding packages. And then you'll see the 3.5 million there is the loan that you've already got, and $477,000. Where'd that come from? Well, that's our forecast of all of your other resources that you've got now that you can throw more equity at the project. That's going to change. because it's based on your budget, money that may or may not be spent, could possibly be pushed over to this. But we're going to see you putting skin in the game. Think of it as an equity contribution when you're building the house. So this googly table here, I really wanted to take just a minute to go through this with you folks. And as you can see, the total project cost is 42 million. We back off the state grant, the DEQ loan forgiveness, the loan proceeds that you haven't spent yet, but you're going to spend on the existing loan, and then the skin in the game money brings it down to the 33 million. What we're doing now in this table is we're introducing time. Time is your enemy in these projects. And I'm going to show you, your folks always told you time is money. Well, I'm going to show you in a little bit how expensive time is going to be. And right now, based on your planning, you're hoping to design and permit the facility for the rest of this fiscal year and then through all of next fiscal year. So it would be from now till June 30th, 24. Then from July 1, 24 through June 30, 25 would be the design and permitting. And that seems reasonable to me based on my experience. And then the next piece is construction. And your plans now are to have this thing completely built by June 30th, 2027. And as you can see, as we move along, we start tearing off, like in the design and permitting, we're using the existing loan to pay for your permitting costs. So there's no extra money there that you have to pay. Then we start peeling off in 2026 the construction cost, assuming you're going to incur 50% per year to build this plant. And then we tear off our equity contributions and grants and so on. Brings it down to $14 million net that has to be borrowed. How these loans work with the DEQ? Have anybody ever had a line of credit? Did you ever build a house and you had a construction line of credit? Well, in your case, you probably had to pay a loan origination fee, and you had to pay a commitment fee, and then you pay interest on anything that you step on the principal. Well, you don't pay a loan origination fee with the DEQ, and you don't have a commitment fee. Another reason to stay with this, but you do incur interest as you step on that line. And that's exactly how it's going to work. As you start building the plant, you're going to incur bills. The bills are going to come here. You're going to send them over to the DEQ, and the DEQ is going to pay them. And that's how that's going to be done, just like a bank would do a draw on a construction. But as you go through construction and you're building, interest is accruing on any money you take, and it's going to be substantial. And based on what we've calculated here, if you build this thing through 2027 and you just step on the line of credit, you're going to have 1.3, almost $1.4 million in accrued interest. And then the other alligator that you're going to have to face is cost inflation during construction. And it always is the big demon in the room. And as you can see, if you look down at the bottom of the table there, you'll see that through the construction timeframe of 2 years, we think at 3% per year, you're going to incur $3.8 million of additional costs just for inflation. Time is everything, and time is your enemy. The faster you get it built, the less it's going to cost you, both on accrued interest and on inflation during construction. My guess is, if you look at this whole table here, and I put the pieces together, in addition to the $42 million project cost that you've got, and you see if you've got almost $5 million in grants and equity contributions and loan forgivenesses, that's all going to get eaten up by inflation and accrued interest during construction. So that's kind of disheartening, isn't it? You've lined up all of this support, and inflation is going to eat your lunch and accrued interest. But that's the nature of construction. So that's what I wanted to show you here, is how sensitive this is to time. And when I did the first run of the model, before I reviewed it with staff, I assumed it was going to take you 3 years. It was going to take you out to 2028. And for that one extra year, it's going to be an additional $1 million between inflation and accrued interest. So the quicker, the better. What we're looking here on the next chart, this busy table is our assumptions that went into the planning for what we're going to come up with. The outcome of this is going to be the rate profile. And inflation, we're assuming 6% on salaries, 6% on PERS, 8% on medical dental, and then 3% on everything else. Fingers crossed. We don't know what inflation's going to do. We hope it's going to be coming back down. Just to give you a little side, bromide, I guess you'd call it. I live in Washington County, and my water service provider is Tualatin Valley Water District, and they're building a $1 billion project to take Willamette River water from Wilsonville all the way down to Hillsborough. They started that project in 2021, probably the worst time to be in a big capital construction project. My water rates since 2021 will double as of March of this year. So just keep that in mind. My water bill has doubled, but that's $1 billion project. Interest rates on earnings. This is something that we like to keep an eye on. You're currently earning 5% on your cash. So that's good. We're going to, like I say, and we saw on the prior slide, design and permitting through 2025, 26 and 27 for construction. This is the current DEQ loan, R31741. That's the $3.5 million loan. That is going to have about $185,000 a year in principal and interest payments for 30 years on that loan, starting in 25. It's just for our modeling purposes. Once again, Elena might be right, and this loan may not have to be paid back till construction is done, and we'll even increase the principal. We'll add $42 million to the 3.5, so you'd be at almost $46 million. And that would be, if you add the total of the two together, you look at the next line, my future debt service on this new 30-year loan, and you'll see the loan numbers there of 2.57% plus 0.5% interest. How this works with the DEQ is you've got a stated interest rate, and then they charge you a fee of 0.5% on principal outstanding during the loan, and that declines as you start paying principal back. So the effective rate is 3.07% on that loan, and the principal and interest payments on that would start in 2029. One of the other important things that I wanted to point out to you folks is just because you're building a new wastewater treatment plant doesn't mean you got to do other stuff too. So we put into the plan that you're going to continue to do your $75,000 a year for your infiltration and inflow abatement program to keep your system as efficient as it can be, and an additional $200,000 per year in cash rate funding for other projects. Stuff is going to break. Even though you're building this brand new wastewater treatment plant, something else is going to go wrong. I guarantee you. So we've got to have money to pay for that. And we put it in there. We're going to talk about operating reserves in a couple of slides, but we're putting an industry standard of 90 days of operating expenses as an operating reserve for the sewer utility. And then system development charges. You're a growing community, and that's great, but it also has its own demons, like having to have new infrastructure to host that growth. So, but we're still thinking that you're going to grow at 1.5% per year, and that your SDCs will grow at that rate. And then, does everybody know what an EDU is? It's an equivalent dwelling unit. It's the units we use for demand. Think of it as all of you have single family home accounts and you pay your water and sewer bill. You would each be considered an EDU. And then we also take into the commercial, and there'd be a ratio of quite a bit more for those commercial customers. But Sadie tells us that you've got 28, 25 EDUs. This is going to be how we calculate the rates. Who's going to pay it back? Because all those noses have to pay back all this money that we're going to be taking in. So here's the bad news. And this assumes that we're going to finish construction in 27, but we're going to start making payments on that big $42 million loan in 28, the next year. So what you'll see here is 3 lines, a no growth case, which is blue, the base case, which is red, and then a enhanced growth case, which would be twice that 1.5% that we're anticipating. And if you look at the end of 2028, we're looking at having your sewer rates under the base case at about $88 a month, $88.24. If we get lots of growth, that'll come down to about 83. If we don't have any growth, it would be 93. And you're paying $50 now. So it doesn't take a genius to figure out in 3 years, you're almost going to double your rates. And this probably is not a surprise to you folks, but these are specific numbers that we think, based on what we know today, are going to be probably what you're going to be facing. Now, what I recommend you consider doing is, rather than wait for the hammer to fall in 2028, you start raising your rates today to start anticipating that greater need. And if you look at this, take it, if you're going from $50 to $90, you're going to need $40 per month per customer over the next 4 years. It's about $10 per year per month that you're going to be looking at for a rate increase on your sewer. If you were going to straight line this, you don't have to do that. You could do a little bit today and wait for better information. But I don't think there's going to be any better information that say this project's going to get any less expensive. Conversely, I think it's only going to get more expensive. So we got to keep that in the back of our minds. So that's the bad news. Let's talk about this next chart, which is probably kind of confusing. There's 2 lines here. The blue line is 90 days of operating expenses. We take a look at your total operating expenses and we put it on a 365-day basis. And we say, how many dollars per day do you need to run? And we say we need 90 days of operating expenses, which right now is about $200,000, is you're going to need in reserves to cover 90 days of your operating expenses in the sewer fund. We compare that to the green line, and you'll notice that green line is growing. It's because we're assuming you're going to be raising your rates between today and 2028. So I know this is a difficult thing, that you're raising rates to get money that you don't need today, but you're going to need in the future. And then you'll see that green line slopes down. We're starting to pay on that big loan that's due on the sewer treatment plant. So we're drawing down that cash in support of paying that debt service, so that we don't have this massive doubling of the rates in 1 year. You could choose to do that if you wanted. Say, do nothing today, wait till 2028 and just double everybody's rates. I don't think that's good policy. I think you need to get the information out, and we've got to start getting on that escalator, that rate escalator. And I know you've been talking about maybe doing a $5 raise come July 1st. Anything is better than nothing right now, because these costs aren't going to go away. And here is the next slide. And I told you the cold comfort piece of it. Neighboring communities' sewer rates, these are monthly sewer rates for a single family home. And you're at $50 right now. You're really very, very affordable relative to your other communities, but you still got to pay it, right? So I have sewer customers now. I'm working with Molalla right now. They're in the same boat you are. They've got to build a new wastewater treatment plant. They're going with a different design. It's called a sequencing batch reactor. But they are already at $85. We got them on the rate escalator. We're going to get them up to over 100, we think, by the time this thing gets built. And they're just down the street from you. I've got others on the coast that are already over $100 a month on sewer rates. I know it's not comfort for you folks, but you're not alone on these extremely expensive projects. And you don't have the customer base of a Seattle, of a Portland, of a San Francisco, where you can spread it over a couple of 100,000 units. You've got 28, 25 EDUs to spread that cost over. So that's why you're seeing the slope of that curve grow so fast. So that's all that I had. One last thing that I wanted to point out, if this thing carries out and you carry construction to 2028 rather than 2027, you're going to be looking at $92 is the average rate on the base case. So anything you can do to get this thing built quicker and on budget is of great value to you folks. So that's everything I had. Hit me.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Donovan? All right, Paul?
I'll start off. Well, thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. Appreciate showing us all this. And yeah, it is kind of shocking to see the numbers in print there, that's for sure. But you know, we appreciate it helping us plan this. Just a couple clarifying things. You'd started off by saying the numbers are wrong, you know, meaning that things are going to change. Would you say this is ballpark?
I'm Debbie Downer. I don't think there's any chance that this number is not going to be under $50 million. And I don't think you're going to get it built by 2027. I've worked on 4 of these in the last 10 years. All of them have been late, over budget, and they don't work. But other than that, they're great. Think about these machines. These are a mix of mechanical, electrical, and biological systems that have to be worked. And you just can't throw the match in and walk away. They always don't work right the first time. They always have workarounds and getting them going. And we just have to expect that. We worked on the big membrane plant down in Clackamas, Water Environment Services. It took them 4 years to get that thing lined out to make it work really efficiently. They had to do workarounds and workarounds. And that was a $120 million project. We were fortunate. We were able to bring it in for about 128 million at that, but that was in 2008, 2009. I just don't think that we should be optimistic and Pollyanna on this thing and think everything's going to go perfectly. It's probably not, and it's probably going to take longer. You're at 30% of design now? Is that where you are?
Yes.
When you get to 60 to 65%, you're going to have a better feel for what the costs will be. That when you get to 65%, then I'll have a better comfort level. But we've got the model built now. We can incorporate new costs, new timing, and we can give you the rate profile that'll fall out of it. But at 30%, I mean, these numbers are probably plus or minus 30% on their cost estimating.
When do we expect 60% design?
That was about April. I think Elena's looking it up quick, right? I guess she looks it up. But it's coming up pretty quick because we're supposed to have our 100% design this summer to DEQ.
And when we get to that point, we'll dial this in and we'll say, oh, great, we're at 100% design. We think we got a pretty good idea.
It's May. We're on track to have it in May, according to our MAO with DEQ.
Okay, thanks.
2 questions. The first one's for staff. Is the equity contribution, is that optional or required as part of the build for the wastewater treatment plant? The $470,000 required or optional?
Go ahead.
It's not required. There's no match on the loans.
Right.
What would be the benefit if we're earning 5% and the loan's at 3% of, it seems like we'd make more money holding on to the equity contribution off the interest accrued over that time, the term, especially when we're not pulling out money
Yes.
and make the contribution at a time when we started having to pay interest.
Sure.
I mean,
Sure,
at least get
sure.
a couple years of the extra.
Another
I know
reason
it's-
why my numbers are wrong. Great question. It's
There are
just,
some
no
different-
question.
A question for you. I noticed that they used was there any look at the population growth over even the last 5 years? I think we grew 24% in the last 2 years, population growth from 2022 to 2020. And the numbers assumed in here is 1.5%, which is the flawed PSU numbers that
That's
we
the
got
PSU
forced to
data.
use.
Right, that's
And
the
another
PSU
one, and
data.
then the best case scenario was 3%. the only reason I say that is Malala and Silverton have really high bills. They have more current sewer systems with smaller populations. So if the numbers were to, obviously the rates would go down a lot more if
Oh,
the
certainly.
population
You
followed the
betcha.
trend of growth
You
that's
betcha.
happened the last 5 years.
No question.
Okay.
And fingers crossed that would be the best of worlds. Problem is if you get big slugs of growth very shortly, do you have the infrastructure to support the growth? Can you host the growth? Do you have capacity? And right now you don't have capacity.
Yeah. It'd be nice to see on the next projection, just a line item that took into account the growth over maybe the last 10 years in Estacada, the real numbers of growth, and applied that over the next.
Do you think you're going to grow the same in the last 10 years? In the future, you're going to grow the same as the next 10 years as you grew in the last 10 years?
I think we're gonna grow
Just like to
more.
look at, I just like to look at the numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, Malala's down to 20 net developable acres for single family residential, and Sandy's in a moratorium. You know, if you look at absent massive infrastructure investments in what was formerly Damascus, there really aren't many other places for people to build single family homes.
And Peter, you're right. Both Malala and Canby have petitioned the state for urban growth boundary expansions, and they're going through that process right now. Because they contend they don't have a 20-year supply of buildable land. So they're going through that state process at LCDC, Land Conservation and Development Commission.
Are there other funding sources might come up between now and then, and we're going to be going after those other funding sources. So, just getting it out there. We're not just planning on it being $50 million and we're gonna, we're gonna go after grants. We're gonna go after anything and everything we can to reduce this number.
Yeah, right now there's $2 million in a bill federally that we could potentially get a federal grant. And then we've already talked to our representative and our senators about asking the state for additional money during the next budget cycle from the state. So we will be seeking additional grant funding. It's a little harder for us to receive some types of grants because they base it on your median income and they look at poverty rates. And Estacada has a very high median income and a very low poverty rate. And so it's hard for us to qualify for a lot of grants that are out there.
But we will keep working on those.
Any other questions?
On the solution side, what have we looked at as far as what are our options as far as accelerating construction? Like the timeline, like you said, have we talked to?
Yeah,
the
that was what when we had the our engineers back here and they're talking about the CMGC process. That's going to cut several months. It's planned to be cut several months off of our construction. So rather than the design bid build, so you get through design 100% and then you put it out to bid and then you build it. You bring the contractor in when you're about 30%. We're going to probably look at doing it early in the next year. And then they'll work alongside the engineer. They'll do value engineering as they're doing it. And then they can start pre-ordering some of the long lead parts. They can start doing some of the site work, before we get to 100% design.
Right, but that was factored into this 2027 projection that you're talking.
That's what we factored into the 2027.
Steve, have you, the last 4 projects you worked on, were those CMGC projects or design build projects? Do you have any favor towards one or the other?
They don't work. These are complicated projects. We just, a couple of years ago, finished Coos Bay. They've got 2 wastewater treatment plants there. And we just finished up on treatment plant number 2. That started out as a $7 million project and we finished construction 2 years late at $22 million. So, once again, I'm Debbie Downer here, but my experience is telling me that there is no magic bullet that's going to make this right. You're going to find that during construction, you're going to have things that you didn't anticipate, that the design didn't take into account. You're going to have soils, you're going to have geotechnical issues that, oh God, there's a fault line underneath the secondary treatment cassette that we were going to use. So now we've got to shore it up. Something's going to happen. But the CMGC, we use that on the Clackamas County, the $120 million project. I'm not sure it's any better, and I'm not sure it's any quicker. But your folks, these these project deliveries, this is kind of what everybody's using now. So there's clearly demons with the design build. I should say design bid build. It's slow. It's excruciatingly slow. Whereas the CMGC, Elena's right. You get the contractor in on the design phase so that he can start getting going right now. One of the things that really has skewed it during COVID was supply chain. We couldn't get, you ever hear of programmable logic controllers? They're like little computers that talk to other computers. Those were 14 months out. Windows for a control building and the laboratory were 27 months out. Hopefully that has now gotten better, but we're still seeing lags on very technical stuff. Submersible pumps, something as simple as a submersible pump. Those things were 3 years out. So that's one of my biggest concerns upon your project is you're going with a membrane technology that is very specialized and has to come from only a few suppliers, and they're all over the world. So just be prepared that we're going to have to push this as fast as we can, but you're also going to have to be at the mercy of your supply chain.
Charity, did you have a question?
He answered it.
Okay.
Supply chain.
All right, are there any more questions for Steve? No? All right, Steve, we thank you very
Thank you.
much for this. I feel much better now. I'm gonna cancel the treatment center tomorrow. And then we'll think of another way to do this. No.
What we're going to do is we're going to come back in front of you in the next couple of probably 6 weeks or so. We're going to start talking to you about water and the challenges that we're facing on water. And then we're going to talk about stormwater, and we're going to try to think of this as a package. Sewer is clearly the elephant in the room, but we can't keep our eye off the ball. You still got to provide water. You still got to make localized flooding go away, and you got to make your stormwater system work. And this is going to call for rate increases on all of them. So it's going to be stacking, and it's not going to be good news, but these costs don't go away. And I think you all know, if we decide to put our heads in the sand and say it'll be somebody else's problem, well, let's just limp along with what we've got. It's going to break, and it's not going to work at all. You got to constantly invest in these systems. And my guess is we're going to be talking about July 1st increases for certainly for sewer, and $5 to $10, depending on what you want to do, a couple of bucks for water. And we're gonna have to scratch our heads on stormwater, what we're going to do there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
All right. I'm gonna give us a few minutes, like about 5 minutes to get comfy and get back in these seats. So, and we'll start the city council. So thank you.